Welcome to Perspectives, a podcast where the clergy women of the First United Methodist Church of San Diego share their musings on scripture, theology, and what it has to do with us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Reverend Brittany, and I'm here with Reverend Trudy. Welcome to another episode of Perspectives. We also have something so exciting to let you know about. We have just launched our Patreon channel, which is an opportunity for you guys to get to connect with one another and to learn more and to grow together. So if you are interested in joining our Patreon, you can find it at patreon.com/FUMCSD. That's patreon.com/FUMCSD. This week, our scripture reading comes from the Gospel of Luke as we jump into who is the good news for yet again. And this week, we're talking about parents coming home. And so the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 2, verses 1 through 5 says, "In those days, Caesar Augustus declared that everyone throughout the empire should be enrolled in the tax list. The first enrollment occurred when Quirinius was the governor of Syria. Everyone went to their own cities to be enrolled. Since Joseph belonged to the house and the line of David, he went up from the city of Nazareth into Galilee to David's city called Bethlehem into Judea. He went to be enrolled together with Mary, who was promised to him in marriage and who was pregnant." Mm-hmm. Trudy, can you imagine?
I cannot imagine that journey.
Being big and pregnant, making your way
pregnant.
on a
We
donkey.
know that the rest of the story is that she has the baby while she's there in Bethlehem, all of that good stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So she is riding on a donkey as the story goes, and it cannot be comfortable.
Cannot be.
Yeah. It's a good story. It's a really good story. We hear it every Christmas Eve. Mm-hmm. We usually hear the rest of the story. We stopped here just because we wanted to catch the movement. Well, there's a lot into it anyway, but we wanted to catch the movement of the parents going home as it's depicted here. The writer of the Gospel of Luke does something really specific with the story of Jesus. Yeah. Puts that in a particular time and place, right? We can literally look up history and know when Caesar Augustus ruled. We know when Quirinius was governor of Syria. We know when the census is that the right way to say that? Census is?
We'll go with it.
There you go.
Just kidding.
We know when the census was taken, right? In fact, we know that there is no record of a universal census like this seems to imply. There were lots of local censuses happening, but not a universal one. So that's a little questionable about the historicity of the story. And also the dates don't actually align up. If we mark the birth of Jesus at 0 CE or AD, that's actually before Quirinius became governor. He didn't become governor until 6 in the current era. So it's not exactly factual in this story.
And in the census, they didn't have to travel, right? They wanted to do the census in the local community so that they could know who lived where at that time.
It was based on where you resided.
Exactly.
Not where you were born.
From.
Right. And I believe you had shared at one point that usually the women didn't have to go.
Yeah, no.
Is that right?
Apparently the women had to be registered under the family head, right? Okay. The husband. Right. But they didn't. Mary wouldn't have traveled with Joseph if this was accurate, historically accurate. Yeah. She would have been at home.
But here is Luke. He's telling the story this way. Right? And so what is the story supposed to tell us? Right. I think there's an intentional placement of the story in the Roman Empire. Right. And the journey home to Bethlehem is intentionally burdensome. I think that's part of what the story is meant to be. The recognition that living in the Roman Empire was a burden for many people. And that would be in line with the Gospel of Luke and how he shapes Jesus's ministry. There was always a concern for the poor people, the folks who were burdened by the Roman Empire's rule, right? And so that context, into that context, the Messiah will come, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's born in the Roman Empire, and it is essentially later on, I hate to do this, is the Roman Empire that kills him,
That's
right?
exactly
and
right.
so
That's right.
to make sure that we understand his Jewish roots and his connection into living in an empire or living in a place that is occupied by an empire.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And naming these two, Augustus and Quirinius, right? Caesar Augustus was the emperor that essentially coined the phrase Pax Romana,
Peace
the
of Rome.
Peace of Rome. That's right, because he was considered to be the one who brought peace. He was the one that closed down all of the local wars. He made the seas safer, kind of got rid of some piracy that was going on at the time, and so he brought some relative peace. But not to everyone.
Right.
Right? Not to everyone. And so this setting puts the Jewish people and people who are burdened by empire with a different option than Caesar Augustus. Right?
And, I mean, I think about the text opens, right? In those days, Caesar Augustus declared that everyone throughout the empire shall be rolled in its tax list.
Right.
It's not that Caesar Augustus wants to send them a Christmas card. It's not that, you know what I mean?
Right.
He's
wants not checking in on the family, making sure everybody's okay.
Hello, he's not sending a check.
Grandpa's still alive? Okay,
Here's your turkey for Thanksgiving, right? That's not what's happening.
That's right. It's for taxes.
It's for taxes.
That's
so
right.
It really puts it into... I think that Luke opens with that is to show us that the empire is concerned with money.
That's right.
Right? And the new empire that will come from the birth of this baby will be counter to this need or this desire for money and power.
Say that again.
That the empire is concerned with the money and the taxation of the people, but this new baby who is coming will bring in a different empire that is not concerned with money and power, but more concerned with the hearts and the souls of the people and how they live and how they are able to live.
Yep, there it is in a nutshell. Now, Quirinius, I can never say that. Quirinius.
I'm here for you.
Quirinius, he actually put down a rebellion of the census, led by one of the Jewish people of the contemporary, one of the Jewish leaders.
Judas, right?
Judas the Galilean. He was the one that had said, look, this is unjust. Don't pay, resist, don't go register. So that's part of this backdrop, too.
Yeah. Because it was like the Jewish community was not, the census opposed their beliefs.
That's
their
right.
belief values.
Yeah. So that's it's not a factual story in the dates, but in just about everything else, right? There's a lot. He's painting a picture of where the world in which Jesus is born. There's a theological importance piece to this as well, and that is just simply the fact that Joseph moved from Nazareth to Bethlehem, and that it said because that was required.
Right.
It was required, but it was required from Luke's perspective in order to place the birth of Jesus in the context of the continual story of God through the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, and the prophets.
Yeah.
So Micah 5:2 says that out of Bethlehem will come the one who will lead the people in Israel, who will be essentially the king of Israel, right? So there's that. There's other references that this story kind of hint at from the prophet Isaiah about a young woman will bear the child. Often translated as virgin, will bear a child, right? So part of what Luke is trying to do is say this is the context that the Messiah is born in, and the Hebrew scriptures is the context from which he comes, right? To tie that continuity of God's movement and action to say this is a God moment right here.
Yeah. I was thinking of when, I don't know which ocean it is, but aren't there two oceans that they meet but they don't kind of go in together? I can't think of what the ocean is, what the two oceans are. I think it's Indian and specific. I could be making that up.
You
Don't
could
quote
say
me.
anything, and I would say, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's this idea that that they don't cross or whatever because of the pattern. But the image that I had in my head was that Luke taking the theological statement and then the societal milieu and kind of creating the scene for which Jesus is born.
Right.
Yeah.
Be part of this world, but not of this world.
Exactly.
That kind of thing. Yeah, yeah. So this is a story. Where's the good news?
Where's the good news? Trudy, where is the good news? You tell me. You tell me.
Is there good news in here? How about you go first?
In verses 1 through 5.
Uh-huh.
Well, the good news for me is that Mary is pregnant. And that with her pregnancy, I think with every pregnancy, with every child that's born, new opportunities for the world to shift and change, for the society that we know to be different through this child and through our actions of raising and rearing this child up, right? Yeah. I also think that the good news, really, at least for me, is that Luke doesn't forget the poor. Yeah. That he doesn't forget those who are on the margins, and that the point of at least these 5 verses is to highlight the corruption of the empire, but to also remind us that the empire doesn't win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, because of the promise of the child.
Because of the promise
Mary's
of the
pregnant.
child.
That's
Exactly.
right. Mary's pregnant. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do think as soon as a parent has a child, has a baby, and it could very well be just speaking from my own social position, because I don't have to worry about paying for formula or anything like that, right? Mm-hmm. But there is some hope in the world, some beauty in the world when you hold that little baby, right? And we dream in a different way. Yeah. When you have a baby in your arms. Mm-hmm. You dream for that baby to live in a world where the environment is cared for and where they might have a better life than we did. And you have such hope for that baby. And I would love a world where everyone who is expecting a baby would feel that kind of hope. And I think in some ways this story is there for all of us to claim and to know the power of what a baby might do for us. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. I think... You just said something that really stuck with me.
And you forgot it.
And I forgot it.
So did it stick with you?
It did. And then it just fleeted from my brain. Fled from my brain.
That happens. It happens a lot, for sure. So,
sorry.
Yes.
That this new baby also, it's not just that this new baby will bring this new life, but that you should be actively working to make the world a better place for your child to live in, right?
That's right.
And so I think about parents. Yes, you have these possibilities that your child has so many opportunities and possibilities for what they can be, but what are you doing, right, to make the world a place that they can stand in and be themselves and flourish in, right? It's not just like leaving it to the children to be changed and transformed, but the parents and the community have to be changed and transformed through the wonder of this child.
That's right. That's right. And I think we see that in the story of Jesus. It doesn't actually come right out because we cling to the idea that Jesus is also God, and that's part of our theological understanding of who Jesus was. But I can't help but think of Mary singing the Magnificat and all the hopes of things turning upside down and justice happening. And I have to believe that Mary was singing that kind of lullaby to Jesus, right? Of course, yeah. And Jesus was found in the temple. This is further down the line, 12 years later, right? But he's in the temple learning the story. So he knew of all the kinds of promises that now the writer of the Gospel of Luke is bringing forth to say that is in this young boy. Yeah. So yes, parents have to be active in being able to offer, first of all, to highlight whatever is wrong and to offer hope that something can be done for what things can be right. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you make with the how he's telling the history? right?
So I
mean, that's
love the gospel writer of Luke. I
I do
love him
too.
because
I
he
do
centers
too.
women and he centers the oppressed, and I love it. However, when we talk about this story, and he kind of conflates the historical accuracy with the truth of what is being told, I get a little leery from my social context, not from Luke's, but from mine, because as someone who loves history, as someone who values it, I think a lot of time history can be told in a way that's not always factual. And that can add some dimension of fiction, which heightens suspicion about whether anything that's coming from it can be true.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's my lens as someone in 2024 with a hermeneutic of suspicion constantly, right? That's my standpoint. I don't think that Luke's intention was to necessarily get people on his side, right? But I think that he wanted to show the complexity of the Roman Empire, and the best way to do that was to kind of...
Yeah.
6
Yeah.
years isn't that much.
Pull these different things. Yeah.
Extrapolate.
It reminds me of the Native American saying that, after an elder tells the story, one of the kids says, is that true? And the elder says, I don't know if it happened this way, but I know that it's truth, right? So I think, and what's striking to me is that typically the fast and furious use of facts in a random way to tell a particular story, it's the victor's story.
Right.
And here it's not the victor's story. So what a beautiful story of truth from that. You're right. Luke's social context, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have very a different understanding of science and possibility and truth even, and logic and fact. All of that. So I think that's something that would be a challenge for us in this day and age to really recover, because we are so factual and there's so many people that are playing loose with facts, right? And that matters, right? But there is also, when we read the scriptures, especially because it's not of our time,
Right.
we have to be able to set aside that suspicion and see the truth within it, right? And part of the truth that we hear in this, with Luke's specificity of time and place, right, is this idea that this transcendent God, eternal God, came to a particular time and place, right? It's the understanding that God limited God's self in that time and place to be with us, right? And for me, if God did it then, God could do it again. If God did it there, God can do it here. If God did it for Mary and Joseph in Jesus, God can do it in us too.
Yeah.
Right? I think that is the theological understanding of incarnation. And we don't do it justice. I don't know if that's the right word. If we don't allow for an incarnational moment in us or around us. And if we insist it has to only be in that time and in that place, and we have to buy it in that way, or we don't get to have any of it.
That's the understanding of miracles, right? People can say, well, that's a miracle and it only happened in antiquity. But really and truly, if God was doing miraculous work at that time, then God is still doing miraculous work today.
Exactly. And we just find different ways to talk about it because we are so immersed in science.
Exactly.
Right?
And we have,
that's right.
Technology has changed and evolved.
That's right.
So can I say this?
Yes.
I'm going to read the scripture again, but I'm going to read it differently.
Ooh, okay.
Once upon a time.
Ooh, there you go.
Once upon a time, Caesar Augustus declared that everyone throughout the empire should be enrolled in the tax list. The first enrollment occurred when Quirinius was the governor of Syria. Everyone went to their own cities to be enrolled. Since Joseph belonged to the house of David in the family line, he went up from the city of Nazareth in Galilee to the David's city called Bethlehem in Judea. He went to be enrolled together with Mary, who he was promised to him in marriage and who was pregnant. So instead of in those days, right? How do we read it if it's once upon a time?
That's right. Yeah.
Because essentially that's what it says.
So maybe the challenge for us this season is to be able to put aside our factually oriented mind and consider the kind of feeling for those of you who are parents or for those of you who have a young newborn in your life or can love your boss's grandson.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Because I'm like, she left me all out of there.
Nope, you're in there. But anybody who has ever looked at a baby or even watched a birth on TV or whatever, to set aside all the facts of how that baby got here and just relish the miracle of it.
Right.
All the things that needed to come together for that baby to be in your arms. Mm-hmm. If you use that same kind of wonder and curiosity and mindset, then maybe you can find good news even in places like the empire. Mm-hmm. And we might be able to see God incarnate in us in new and different ways.
Yeah. I think so.
There
I'm willing to try.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
That's been our perspective. What's yours? We hope you've enjoyed this conversation. We never know what's going to come out of our mouths, and we are grateful that you are listening. And we invite you to consider these questions as you ponder what you've just heard. How do you stretch the truth when you tell stories? What fictional story contains elements of truth for you? And what power do you think a baby holds? And as you consider these questions this week, we do invite you to head on over to our Patreon community to share your responses and to tap into additional resources. There will be an opportunity for you to share your ideas, your answers to these questions on Patreon. So I hope you'll find it. Again, that's patreon.com// we can't get that right. Patreon.com/FUMCSD. patreon.com/FUMCSD. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye!
This is a production of First United Methodist Church of San Diego. To learn more about our events and ministries and to access additional learning resources, visit FUMCSD.org.